All right. Obviously, take the Saturday film, make our corrections, make our adjustments. I do think our guys are excited to get back. Obviously, in the Big Ten play, get back here, back at home. Message to our guys on Sunday were, to make the corrections from the game. I think we really got to take a look at offensively and defensively, and not so much in the kicking game, but just how we're starting the game. Obviously, to be behind the last two games, especially out of the gate, was difficult to overcome. So I think our guys got to stay to the process. A lot of our players, I think, understand where we're going, how we need to get there. From an injury standpoint, a couple things during the course of the game that really still haven't made a decision for this week where they're at. Sidney Brown left the game. Is undergoing some further exams. Don't know exactly where he's going to be at for Friday night, but is a lot better today than he was yesterday. Still have some things to process through there. Some guys that returned to the game. Obviously, Chase Brown played extremely well. Excited for him. Brandon Peters will be back. We'll actually go with him as our starting quarterback going into this game. Had a conversation with Art yesterday. Brought him in. Talked about where we're at, what we're doing. Wasn't anything that he did or didn't do well. He played extremely well, especially the way he first entered the game, going back to the Nebraska game. I thought the guys really did a nice job rallying around him, did some good things, but I told him that the role was exactly reversed, right? If he was a starter and was knocked out of the game and BP came in, we would do the exact same thing 100 times over. So I always think honesty is the best policy, and that was just being real. Art was awesome with it. BP obviously is excited about the opportunity because we're in a shortened week. This is really a day that we would have off as players or as players and coaches from the field, but tonight we'll bring them back over, have an opportunity to go through basically our Tuesday install on Monday. We'll go out under the lights here and get some looks in the kicking game as well under the lights, as well as the throw game. Then we'll go back to our normal practice times Tuesday and Wednesday. Thursday we'll go in the afternoon, which would be like a Friday prep for us, and then obviously Friday night be in the game. So some things to work through. Thought our guys again handled the moment as well as possibly could. When we come back here to the stadium, we get dropped off, and my office overlooks kind of the path or the walkway that they walk to their cars. And I was on bus one, got off, went right to my office, went up there and sat at my desk and was beginning to watch through some film. I was able to watch the one side of the ball on the way home, and as I just sat there and watched our players steadily stream by for the next half hour, 45 minutes, saw a lot of guys with a demeanor that wasn't happy. There wasn't anybody obviously satisfied with the results. See a lot of frustration and anger. These guys have been through a lot, so the more we can get them to understand this is part of the process to get where we want to be. I'm not going to skip a step to get sustained success, and unfortunately there's going to be some hiccups along the way, and our guys understand that, but got to correct the mistakes that we made on Saturday to get to where we want to be on Friday. So with that, open up the questions.
What does Brandon bring to you?
What is what?
Brandon Peters bring back to you in the offense?
Well, he's our starting quarterback going into the opener, right? Was lost really early in that first game, so a lot of the things that we had saw during fall camp, even going back to last spring through the summer, through fall camp, weren't able to be materialized yet. But he obviously has a very live arm. I think a lot of experience, kind of a new offense for him. So he's kind of seen this evolve now for 2 games not being on the field, not really involved in the game prep. Really hasn't taken any practice reps with our 1s and 2s since the preparation for Nebraska. The last 2 weeks he wasn't cleared to get through those practice phases. So really Ryan and Art had been taking all those reps. So he has witnessed it. He's gone against our defense through scout team, Skelly, and did some things during practice that were non-contact that allowed him to stay involved in the practice plan, but nothing as well as it will be this week.
What did you see out of him over the course of the last few weeks to stay involved and try to be ready? Yeah.
Just what you would expect out of him. He's a quarterback. He's heavily involved every practice, every meeting. I think he, like I mentioned here a couple times, was a guy that came back probably a little bit quicker than I thought they were going to. Didn't know if there was a chance we were going to be able to get him back sooner than this. This is actually a little bit ahead of schedule as it is. So I just was wasn't really amazed. It's kind of just what BP is. He's heavily involved. Anything he could do to help Art, that was something that was very, very clear from the moment of the injury happened to where we are today. A very, very good teammate, a guy that not only helped Art, but he was helping RJ and Matt and some guys that possibly could go too if things didn't work well for Art.
I know you have philosophies about what you guys want to be identity-wise on offense and defense. Do you feel like through 3 games you've established an identity? Are you still looking for that? Or?
You know, without a doubt, there's a pattern that we want to follow, but part of that process is, really going into the first game to have your starting quarterback knocked out, right? That throws a little bit of a curveball into it. So then you have the preparation going into UTSA that has that effect on it, but then also lost 2 of our top 4 running backs. That had a factor into it. We were also getting Palcho back off of what he had been, right? He didn't actually take more than 30 snaps in a practice until that first game, and then to see how he was going to respond in a practice week after that, going into UTSA. So we had a lot of juggling with the offensive line as we did this past weekend, moving back into guard. Just kind of finding who our identity is, who our players are. I do think we sat down yesterday and took a look at, who our running backs are, who our tight ends are, who our wide receivers are. We think we got a handle on our best 5 offensive linemen and the swing players after that. And that's hopefully going to help us continue to build that as we enter Big Ten play.
Brett, when you look at those running backs, what do you like out of Josh McCray in the last 2 games?
Josh is a very talented player. He's a big back. He's obviously a little bit more physicality than anybody else we'd had on the roster. He's comes from a part of the country that he just naturally runs the ball extremely physical. He's a very talented back. The coach that recommended him to me was the coach that had recommended Melvin Gordon to me, so he knew the kind of backs that we had liked. He'd been recruited by a lot of different schools as a linebacker, and he knew that I liked big backs. So that was something that was easy to see, but I think when he pops in the game, you can just see his energy level kind of brings to the offense, to the offensive line. There was a play on Saturday where he kind of hopped over and looked like it could go for a big one. And he's into it. I think we got to let him learn the game a little bit better and let it come to him. But I'm excited where he's at.
What have you attributed the slow starts to, Brett?
What do we attribute the slow starts to? Our opponents, a little bit. Offensively, there's definitely, I think, you're always going to have a game plan element, and sometimes as you get a little bit deeper into the season, you'll understand what your opponent's going to bring against you. I think part of our unknown was they didn't know what we were going to do, so we didn't know how they were going to defend us, right? It kind of works both ways. So that there's definitely a give and take there. I think offensively, when your number is called, whether it be at the quarterback, running back, wide receiver, an offensive lineman throwing a block, a tight end, either the throw game or the run game, early on we got to answer those questions quicker and with a little bit more, a little bit better execution, and hopefully that'll help us out. And then on defense, without a doubt, obviously we just got to make sure that we've got the calls that we want and be able to execute the adjustments, because people are giving us a little bit of formational adjustments, some things that caused us to get out of position early.
How do you guys get more pressure on the quarterbacks defensively?
Yeah, there's 2 ways to apply pressure, right? Mental and physical. Mentally, to give different looks and to make him understand what he's processing before the snap is one. And then the physical pressure is just whether we want to bring 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7, pressure. A little bit of the game flow kind of plays into that. Also, what kind of quarterback you're facing. Through 3 games, we faced quarterbacks that really do, run the ball really well and escape pressure. So you want to make sure you're able to corral him and understand what we're trying to do to bring pressures if that's what we have to do.
Sorry, you mentioned the opposing quarterbacks kind of stressing your defense maybe a little bit with their kind of skill sets. How important is it for your offense to be able to stress defenses with their different kind of skill sets and different schemes that you throw at them?
Yeah, I answered his question about how do you bring pressure, and I said one of the things you got to factor is what your quarterback does. So when we have an offense, Art has really probably been a surprise to not just us, but the opponents we're playing, that he's been able to scramble for some first downs with his legs. I think BP is a guy that, unlike what maybe people would describe him as a drop back guy, he is a guy that can also move and generate some things with his legs. It's just at this point that's not the emphasis on our quarterbacks. Our emphasis is on handing the ball off, executing on 3rd down with a throw game, and then if presented with the opportunity to scramble, he'll do that.
Coach, if you take this win against Maryland, You're still 2-0 in the Big Ten. You're top of the West Division. Do you feel like that could be a major turning point for the season to kind of forget about the last 2 games?
You know, the season started with 12 opportunities in front of us, 3 are behind us. We're a 1-2 team on paper, but for our guys, they have a 1-0 mentality on a week, right? Every week they're just trying to lock themselves into whatever they have to do to have success this week. I told them yesterday to have success on Friday was going to be very important for us to have success on Monday, and that's part of the process we're going through. A lot of times people want to jump to the end like you just did. Like it doesn't work that way. As a player, as a coach, you can't. If we were sitting here 3-0, I'd be saying the same exact thing. The problem is we aren't, right? So everybody wants to focus on the fact that we're 1-2. So in my previous experiences, when we've been 3-0, and in previous experiences we've been 1-2, the fact that you focus on the week at hand is all that really matters. If you start trying to figure out where you're going to be at the end, if something hypothetically happens, you just wasted, you know, some time in your life you'll never get back. So everything we do is about the preparation for Maryland. Today to have a good practice tonight under the lights is our only focus, and what that does to affect Tuesday will affect Wednesday, will affect Thursday, and then Friday. I know it's not the answer we always want, but that's the answer the football team has to go under.
Does the compressed schedule this week actually help you do that?
You know, it is what it is. I think there's, you know, everybody's going to always sit back and try to analyze whether it's good or bad. It's just what it is. Like, it's not what happens, it's how you react to what happens. You know, when we were sitting there Sunday morning in a staff meeting, you know, I told our guys, listen, it's 11 o'clock on Sunday, but really it's 11 o'clock on Monday in game week, right? So you're already 24 hours behind what you normally are. So had a Thursday night game when I was in college, I had Friday night games when I was in college as a head coach, and I had Thursday night games in the NFL that we played on Sundays, which is an absolute crazy turnaround. So kind of took the schedules of all those different looks and combined them into what we thought could give us the best chance to get ready for this Friday.
What are some of the things you pointed out to your guys about Maryland?
About Maryland?
Yeah.
Well, personally, because we haven't had a chance to meet with them today, we had a basic introduction to them on Sunday night. I let my 2 coordinators and the special teams coordinator take their respective side of the ball, but tonight we'll emphasize, obviously, offensively, a very dynamic quarterback that brings a lot to the throw game. They run the ball effectively. Very, very balanced on first down, almost 50-50, but you can look at some specific things within that number. Get the ball to the perimeter a lot to their wide receivers defensively, an advantageous group that you know has improved greatly from a year ago. They've had transition in both offense and defense as a coaching philosophy, so, and in special teams with Coach Hook. So there's a lot of newness to their team this year through those 2 games that hadn't shown up until this year.
We saw Luke obviously week 0 and then Daniel week 1, kind of bigger games. But how do you get them both going at the same time within the offense?
Who's that?
Luke and Daniel, Luke Ford and Daniel Barker.
Luke and DJ, they're both playing tight end, but we kind of use them both a little bit different. Tip is kind of the stopgap. Luke is a certain type of tight end that we've used on the line of scrimmage and off the ball as well, and then DJ has kind of been more of a movement guy. So both those guys, you know, do a lot of different things. The game plan this week is going to have some carryover from what it's been in the first 3 games, but the biggest thing for us, especially at the tight end position, is to look how a team plays us and how we can most effectively use them.
You talked about penalties, mental error, turnovers. Do you address the unsportsmanlike conduct penalties differently than you address other penalties when you use review tape?
Yeah, great question. So you guys have heard me say it. You just regurgitated it. One of the 3 biggest ways you can effectively lose games is penalties, mental errors, and turnovers. So turnovers were actually, you know, even on the year. We had it even through the first 3 games. So we haven't gained an advantage or a disadvantage through that. I do think our guys were attacking the ball on Saturday, and I think we protected it fairly well. We gave up the fumble at the end with Chase and the interception at the end on the sideline. But the 2 areas we're really concentrating on, obviously, are penalties and mental errors. And the penalties, things are going to happen during the course of a game. It's a physical game. Every player that's played the game, you realize you get caught in an occasional situation. An offensive lineman might hold, a defensive player might have a face mask, but the post-snap or pre-snap, however you want to say it, the plays that happen before the ball started to play or after the ball is played, you just can't have them. You can't be tolerated. Unfortunately, we had 3 within a pretty quick span that accounted for 45 yards. We had 90 yards of penalty, and 45 of them came on 3 different plays. We're not going to be able to win many football games. That definitely got addressed. As a head coach, I can always address those things right when they happen, but usually I'm hot, they are obviously hot, they just had it, so it's usually never a great situation to learn from. So we took a deep breath. I addressed that individually with those players on Sunday, and pretty sure that won't be won't be something that at least those three, and hopefully our team won't do again. And then the big one is mental errors, right? When I asked a question earlier about slow starts, we just have had some things that we're not on the same page as players and coaches at the beginning of the game with mental errors, and we got to make sure when we make a call that they know how to execute it, and vice versa. That we as coaches have to have confidence in them knowing the plan.
Brett, you talked about knowing your first 5 offensive linemen. Does that mean Doug, you have optimism that Doug will be good to go on Friday?
There is nobody that's been ruled out
Okay.
from anything. Doug, actually the week before, was banged up and didn't get back on the practice field, I believe, until Thursday. Well, he practiced Wednesday a little bit, Thursday, and then Friday felt good. Was doing really well in the course of the game, and then had another injury. Doug is playing at a high level. Very intelligent player, plays with great heart, great energy. He's a great communicator for us, so he definitely is a guy that has rubbed off on everybody in a positive direction, especially up front.
Coach, you mentioned tackling on Saturday, and how do you address that? Short week, hard to go full contact in practice. How do you address that?
So when we entered fall camp, there's only 2 days that you could go, full scrimmages, and we kind of addressed at that point, like, listen, those are obviously going to be live scrimmage days, but how we practice and how we incorporate tackling drills during the course of the week don't really change whether it's a short week or a long week. Today we'll be in Spiders, so we won't be able to tonight, but tomorrow they'll have a tackling circuit. A lot of the tackles that we missed on Saturday really showed up uncharacteristically guys that we had been pretty sure tacklers at that point. So I think it was kind of a frustration level for a lot of our guys that reverted back to some bad techniques, old techniques that definitely don't want to surface up again. I think we got to wrap up, tackle, run through, and not dive at people's feet. I think that'll be a good start.
As you went back and watched film, what were the most concerning things defensively that stood out to you?
Well, we can't give up free plays, right? So anytime that we just have a little simple formula, explosive plays are runs over 12 yards or passes over 20 yards, and they had 9 passes over 20 yards. You're not going to be able to. On the flip side, we had 4 offensive explosive plays. We had 2 runs and 2 passes, so we were even on runs, but they had 7 more explosive pass plays than we did. And if you have 4 or more as a defensive unit, it's usually a very, very bad sign of a possible defeat. It's been my experience that if you have 4 or more, that nothing good usually comes out of that, and they had almost double that. So we definitely have to look at how those plays happen. It was a variety of different things. There was technique errors, there were mental errors, there were situations of plays that had given us new looks and things that we hadn't seen before, and we just weren't able to identify them. And they, to my hat, they give them a lot of credit. They ran a throwback to the quarterback. We hadn't practiced that one, right? So they were opportunistic with the times that they threw in a couple of glitches, and their tight ends made some big plays over the middle that were big.
Brett, we haven't asked you in a couple of weeks. How is your vaccination status? Are you guys fully vaccinated now?
Yeah, we're 100% vaccinated. I think we've been vaccinated for probably 3 weeks.
Sure. Okay. We're a fourth of the way through the season. Are you happy, obviously, that there hasn't been any COVID issues? If you had any COVID issues?
Yeah, we've been obviously most of our stuff obviously practices outside, but when we're indoors in the building, I've asked a lot of our guys to just be very cautious when they're outside of this. We just sort of haven't let parents back into our hotels when we're on the road or when we're at home games here, so we're going back to some of the same policies they had in the past. But yeah, I think our guys have really been conscientious of it. To get everybody 100% vaccinated was a big step in the right direction, and then I think they're being cautious about how they spend their time away from the game of football as well.
Talking about those explosive plays, Deuce Spann seems like a guy that's been making those for you guys.
Yeah.
Do you think he can continue to have that kind of success?
Yeah, Deuce is an explosive player. Had a little package set up for him last week. He obviously connected early on that on the first touchdown, but unfortunately then he was kind of limited in the rest of the day. But he should be back 100% full go with us. Just was a little bit tight in the lower leg, so he is a guy that's exciting. I brought him in yesterday. We had a nice conversation just about how was he feeling, comfortable. He's no longer, it's different, right? When you're a backup quarterback, you aren't really involved in near as much physicality or, just the pure reps of practice. And I think that part he had to get used to just the way he addressed himself, to get ready for practice, to mentally get ready for practice, and then go into the game and know when his number will be called. So our guys respond really quickly to him. Deuce is an unbelievably great kid, great attitude, great work ethic. So I think he's a guy that, as we looked at it yesterday, he's a guy that we want to keep moving forward and target plays at him.
Is there
So I
an,
imagine it's difficult to learn a route tree during the middle of the season, especially after making the transition as late as he did. Where's he at kind of learning the route tree and kind of the offense as a wide receiver?
The good thing about a route tree is you got to know as a wide receiver, but you got to know it as a quarterback.
Yeah.
Right? So he didn't have to learn anything over again. But he did, obviously the nuances of lining up as a wide receiver, the nuances of breaking off the top of the route when a defender's holding you, all the things that he hadn't learned as a quarterback, all the same things that Isaiah and him really made quick transition because they had already learned the offense. They're a quarterback that had been in charge of the entire huddle, so the transition was very quick. The part that I'd say Isaiah and Deuce probably would struggle the most is just the details of being a wide receiver that involve the physical aspect of catching the ball, being able to get off of press man coverage and do some different things that they haven't had to do as a quarterback.
What's the status of Mike Epstein?
He's still out for this game. Mike's in basically in a holding pattern. I think we're going to make he has another round of tests at some point, maybe in like 4 weeks or something like that. But right now, he won't be back with us anytime soon.
is there an
You
up,
mentioned DJ Johnson after the last couple of games. Are you happy with or excited about what he could do for you?
There's a couple freshmen. DJ Johnson on defense. Tyler Strain got in there a little bit. DJ is a guy that very athletic. He's kind of a playmaker type mentality. I think the part that was good for us on Saturday, we got him involved with now some line of scrimmage defensive plays, and I'm excited where he can go because he's very coachable. He's long, he's athletic, he's twitchy. He's got a lot of the characteristics we're looking for.
is there an update on the waiver status for Alec Bryant?
No, still in a holding pattern on that as well.
Okay.
Jake had the two
Last
forced
question.
fumbles. Jake had the two forced
Yep.
fumbles. Is there, I know it's technique involved, but is it also like just a Jake thing? I don't know, how do you, I guess, assess it?
Yeah, it was interesting. I saw a stat go out on Jake's jump up in the Big Ten overall standings, and the guy at the top of the standings was a guy by the name of Chris Borland that I recruited at Wisconsin, who had 0 scholarship offers when we offered him. But when you were around Chris, he just naturally found the ball all the time. It didn't matter if it was a run game, pass game. A lot of times, a lot of people just be standing there and he just go whack the ball out, right? And as soon as I got here, when I put the film on, I literally said to myself, when I saw Jake make play after play on the ball, I'm like, this is exactly what I saw with Chris. And going into this past game, we knew that was going to be a point of emphasis, and Jake buys into that 100 times over. I think the first one he caused on Saturday, he actually hit him so hard the ball just flew out of bounds. You're not going to be able to judge where a ball's going to go when you get it out or strip it out, but Jake's usually when you're going 100 miles an hour and going full speed, things like that can happen, and that's exactly what. But he does have a little knack. You'll see certain players, especially in the NFL, just give a punch on the ball or a swipe on the ball or know to come over it rather than come under it. He's got a lot of those innate qualities that are really easy to see.